As if all your works don't speak for you. As if every heart don't beat from you. As if every flower don't bloom for you. You are the truth, Yahuwah. The sun was the word, don't miss it. The sun was the word, don't look no further. The sun was the word, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it. A fool says in his heart, and no almighty one, but your throne is established from of old. Still your grace and mercy offers freedom and a rocker to the poor and needy soul. So you send a man, telling them repent, forsake your sins, turn away. Still man want a sign, just not that type of sign. He needs another sign. Like the elements don't speak for you. As if every breath don't breathe from you. As if the sun and moon don't report to you. Your word is true, Yahuwah. Your eternal soul lives out of time, discerning every thought inside the mind. You came into the world, redeeming life. The sign is you, Yahusha. The sun was the word, don't miss it. The sun was the word, don't look no further. The sun was the word, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it.
Shalom, shalom. Give me 1 sec. I know the music's probably was messed up. Give me 1 second. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, shalom, everyone. This is Eliyahu Malak, along with the Great Awakening Assembly of the Most High, also known as TJ Assembly. If you're looking on Facebook, you can follow the page, hit a notification bell to be notified when I come live. If you're looking on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share. If you're looking from both platforms, please, share the message so this message can go out to the masses. We have another good one today. I'm still continuing this series of the life and the ministry of Yahusha, the life and the ministry of Messiah, which is who I call Yahusha. Like I said, I believe it's very important that we understand Yahusha's purpose here, because the only way we can understand our purpose as Israel is to understand his purpose, because he was the firstborn amongst many brethren. He is our example. He is our kinsman redeemer. And in the Hebrew community, I don't see a lot of attention being brought or shed upon Yahusha, his death, his burial, and resurrection. I know we hear that in a Christian connotation, but it's vitally important for us to understand who he is and to hold him as an utmost respect, because none of this that we're doing means anything, because he embodied this whole word that we are supposed to live and to ingest. He had faith without measure, and the spirit of Yahuwah was able to do a work in him in his full form because he was sinless. So that's vitally important, that we have to take on that same spirit and to learn of his ways. It said, the word says, let this mind be in us, which was also in Yahushua HaMashiach. Okay? So he was the perfect example. So in order for us to really understand who we are, we have to know our identity, not just as in flesh as Israel, but in spirit, as far as the spirit of Yahushua. Because the Bible says that he came to many of his people, but they did not receive him. But as many as received him, he gave them power to become sons of Elua. So it's just not based upon our bloodline heritage. That just because you've come enlightened to understand who you are doesn't automatically get you into the kingdom, doesn't automatically get you into the blessings and the promises, because this is what Shaul said. This is all coming off the top of this dome, so excuse me. He says, he said he suffered that he may know him and the power of his resurrection. and in the fellowship of his suffering, being conformed into him, not having his own righteousness, but the righteousness of Yahushua HaMashiach. Let's go there. I think I know it's Philippians somewhere. Y'all give me a second. It's coming off the fly. Philippians. Okay, I'm just read this whole thing. This is what Shaul's saying. This is why a lot of people don't like Shaul, because it seems as if he's downplaying his natural heritage. But no, he's ascending. He's giving greater insight onto the importance of Yahusha. So that's why I see a lot of Hebrews, they come into the walk without the Spirit. They're not born again, but they get an understanding of who they are, and so they're full of pride. So they come from church or what they know as Christianity or whatever. So they believe in Yahushua at first, but then they start looking at Paul. They don't like what Paul's saying. Then they don't like what Yahushua is saying. So then they stop believing in the Messiah that he ever came. Then they become Torah only. They stop believing in the prophets because the prophets point to the Messiah, and then now they're just Torah only, and they just look at the first 5 books. I guess I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Which a lot of those things we can't even do now because we don't have any nation, we don't have a homeland, we're not anywhere, nothing. So you just out here cursing people out, telling them to wear fringes, wear beards, and do what you tell them to do as far as your interpretation. So this is what Philippians 3 says. Says, finally, my brethren in Yahuwah, to write these things to you, to me indeed is not grievous, but for you it is safe. Beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of concision, for we are the circumcision which worship Allure in spirit and rejoice in Yahushua HaMashiach and have no confidence in the flesh. Okay? Again, see, that kind of pricks people because if we feel like, no, but the promise is given to Israel. But you have to understand that being an Israelite just gives you access to, it gives you access to certain things. All right, it gives you access because Yahushua said, "Many are called," which is all of Israel, but few are chosen out of that. Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are been summoned to have access to the benefits of being Israel, but only a few are willing to go on to the journey of perfection. All right, that's what we need to understand. Y'all give me a minute. So we have to really understand that aspect of spirituality. See, many people aren't spiritual, so they haven't tapped into the spirit realm, so they can't relay divine, heavenly inspired things by the spirit because they don't have the spirit. Only those, a natural man cannot perceive the things of the spirit. They're not known unto him. All right. It's more than just doing commandments. What commandments? We echo that, but what is it? All right. Let me get to what I'm trying to say because I'm just rambling now. So this is what he's saying. Though I might have confidence in the flesh, if any man thinketh that he has whereof he might trust in the flesh, I more. He says, circumcised the 8th day, of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, and the Hebrew of all Hebrews, as touching the law of Pharisee. Let me just give you this understanding. They say in order to be a Pharisee, by the age of 20, you had to understand, you had to know the 5 books of Moshe by heart. By the age of 20, that means you had to know Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. You had to recite it by heart by the age of 20. So he was saying that he's the valedictorian of his class. He said, I was a Hebrew of all Hebrews. He sat under the feet of Gamaliel. I believe he's going to say this. He said, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, touching righteousness, which is the law, blameless. He says, you doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Hamashiach, my Adonai, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Christ. Now he's not talking about that he's doing away with the law. He was a Pharisee, so he was talking about the laws and the traditions of the Pharisee, which are the laws and traditions of men. He said, I had rank in that order, but I put all that mess away so that I may win the true law, the true spirit of the law, which is through Yahushua HaMashiach. So it says, and being found in him, he's saying, okay, I'm Benjamin, I'm of the tribe of Benjamin, of this, but I want to be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Hamashiach, the righteousness which is of Alua by faith, by Amunah. It says that I may know him. This is what he's saying, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. He said that he wanted to suffer with him because he knew that if he suffered with him, then he will reign with him. When Yahusha coming to resurrect us, he's coming to resurrect those that came into the same line of persecution that he did, that worked in the spirit, not did their own works. I can go out here and I can sell this house, I can sell my car, and I can go, but if I'm not doing it through Yahusha, all of that is done. It's vain. I have to be led by the Ruach HaKodesh and go through the suffering that is allotted to me through the Spirit by Yahuwah, through his son Yahusha. All right, it says that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable unto his death, if by any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead. So this is what he's saying. So he said he didn't want to just, he said, if I suffer with him, I will reign with him. I will be glorified with him. Okay. So this is my introduction. Hallelujah. I pray that we be blessed through this message. And again, I am Eliyahu Malak, and this is the Great Awakening. Hallelujah. All right, let me double check and see if everything's going well. It is. All right. So let me hop into this. We're going to be talking about the life and the ministry of the Messiah, which is the sign of Yahusha. Or you can call it the star of Yahusha, but I want to talk about the sign of Yahusha, which was the star. So we're going to break some things down. I'm going to go through this very quickly. I'm going to try to. I always say that, but let's get into the slides, all right? So one thing I want to go through, you ever heard of Yahusha being a Nazarene? Now we know that a Nazarene, this is what I've heard a few times growing up, and you know what I'm saying, when you're along with the Christian community, a Christian service, they say that the Messiah was a Nazarite because he was a Nazarene. So they say that he was a Nazarite. So he took a Nazarite vow and blah, 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 blah. And we know with a Nazarite vow, you can't eat anything of the vine or drink anything of the vine. You can't, you have to grow your hair long. And it's a third thing. You can't touch anything that's dead. Something like that. Um, that right there lets you know that he wasn't a Nazarite because he did touch dead people to resurrect them. Um, we know that, okay, he turned water into wine. All right. So, but anyway, so let's dispel this. Let's look at this because this is crucial to what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so was Yahusha a Nazarite? And the answer is absolutely no, because a netzer has absolutely nothing to do with a Nazarite vow. The Hebrew words Nazir and Netzer are unrelated. So Nazir is where we get the word Nazarite from. But Netzer is where we get the word Nazarene from. All right. So they are completely unrelated in the Hebrew language. Okay. Just because they sound different, they sound similar, even in Hebrew, just because they sound similar in English, they are unrelated. So that's why it's important to understand cultures, to understand the Hebrew language, so we get a proper context and understanding of Yahuwah's word. So they just appear similar in English. It says the prophets tells us that the Messiah, the son of Dawid, will be a Zamach. which is a branch out of the trunk of David. But Isaiah is the prophet who tells us something very specific about this Zamach. He will be a netzer. So this is the prophecy that that Isaiah was talking about, and we're going to go through that. I know we may be a little bit lost, but I'm going to explain what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the branch and certain signs in the heavens concerning the prophecies that were put in the Bible by many different prophets. Like, these are the foundational teachings that I've learned in 2010, 2011, that it changed my ruach. It changed my perspective. It made me fall in love with Yahuwah and what he was doing, and how he gave these things unto Israel. And then a little bit later, that's when he really began uh, to come to me concerning who I was and the part that I played in that as an Israelite. So that's why it's important to really understand who Yahusha is before you really understand who you are. Because I fell in love with his ways. I fell in love with his thoughts, his words, his order of things. And it was just mind blowing to me. And then later to know that, hey, to be reintroduced to who I was something special. So let's keep going. All right. So the Zamach, the branch, we can see this word, the branch, in 5 different places in the word. Okay, you can see in Jeremiah and in Zechariah or Zechariah. You can see in Isaiah, and we're going to look at each of these 5 ways that they are talked about in the word. And this is going to tie into the first video when I talked about the Basor, the Gospels, and how they relate to the 4 faces of Yahuwah that was characterized and represented through Yahusha and the Basor. Okay? Just look at this. You can't make this up. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is so beautiful. I think the Bible was written by 40 different authors over 1700 year period. And so these people didn't know each other. Okay? They was born in different times. They were all related now, but they didn't know each other personally. They weren't getting together to try to do this thing. It was the spirit of Yahuwah working in men. And now we can look back and bring these things out. Okay? It's going to be beautiful. Let's look at it. So let's look at Matthew. Last week we talked about how Matthew was written by Hebrew, who's Matthew, for Hebrews, and was to show Yahusha as the king. Okay, the 4 faces of Yahuwah are the 4 faces of those Malachim that was before the throne, which I say the 4 faces of Yahusha. The 4 different characteristics of Yahusha was a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Okay, so we know the lion is represented as the king. Okay, look at last week's video if you want to get a better breakdown. I'm not gonna go back over that now. Okay, so Jeremiah 23:5 says, "And behold, the days come, said Yahuwah, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch." Okay, it says, "A king shall reign and prosper and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth." So there's 5 different times in Yahuwah's word that he referenced uh Yahusha as the branch. All right. So this is Matthew. All right. Let's look at Mark. Mark was known as the servant. That's why Mark doesn't have a lineage, and it talks about the most miracles that Yahusha did, and he's always going forth and going over here and doing this. Zechariah 3:8 says, "Hear now, O Joshua the priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at. For behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch." All right. So again, that goes to Mark, talking about Mark, or Marcus, as you can see, and Mark was visualizing Yahusha as a servant. All right. So let's keep going. Let's look at Luke. Luke was the man. He looked at Yahuwah or Yahusha. He wanted to show people, or it was written to Greeks to show Yahusha as a man, to show that he was human, that he had humanity, because the Greeks and foreigners and Gentiles, they always looked at, they had fables and about gods and demigods and Zeus and all those Ares and all this stuff. So he wanted to show them Yahusha as a man, and he used eyewitness accounts. Okay, he was like a reporter. All right, so let's keep going. So he says, and speak unto him, saying, thus speak Yahuwah of hosts, or Yahuwah Sabaoth, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place. That's important. He shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yahuwah. All right, that's important. We're going to look at that as we go forth on. He shall grow up out of his place, because we know that Yahusha was from, you know, he was from the tribe of Judah, and we know the tribe of Judah supposed to be in Judah, the southern part near Jerusalem. But we know that Yahusha was born in Galilee, in the northern part of Israel. All right, so we're going to be looking at that. All right. Let's keep going. So let's look at John, Hebrew for Yakanan, or Yakanan, is Hebrew for John. So Isaiah 4:2 and 4 says, in that day shall the branch of Yahuwah be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for them that are escaped of Israel. When Yahuwah shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning. So this is the branch of Yahuwah, which is Yahusha. And look what he's going to do. He's going to wash away the filth, and he's going to purge the blood. So we know that John, Saint John, we know him as Yakanan, he pictured Yahusha as being the son of Eluah, as being divine, represented as the eagle. So only someone who is divine, the son of Yahuwah, will be sent to wash away the sins, to take away the sins of the world. For Yahuwah so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever shall believe him should not perish but have everlasting life. Okay, so that's what this branch is talking about. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's look at the fifth branch. All right. Because we believe that there's four Besoras or four gospels, but really actually there's five gospels, because Revelation is the testimony of Yahusha that was given to Yakanan. All right. Yakanan, the apostle. That's the revelation of Yahusha, and he's coming back as a judge to judge the earth. All right. So let's look at this. Jeremiah 33:15. It says, in those days and at that time, every time we see that, that's talking about in those days, that's the last days, and at that time, that's the end of the last days. Will I cause the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David, and he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land. That's referring to uh, the latter year, or the 1,000-year reign of Yahusha. All right. So let's keep going. So let's look at this Zamok. Where else can we see this Zamok? We know that Yahuwah set up the sun and the moon and the stars for signs and for seasons, for days and for years, and for signs, but they're prophetic signs. They're time clocks that Yahuwah put up. He put the stars and to circle in such a way to signify certain things at certain specific times. Okay, it's like a eternal time clock throughout the ages. All right. So let's look at this. Let's look at the Zamok in the heavens. Okay, so what we're looking at here is what we know as, over here, if you look at astrology, we say Virgo. Okay, this is the constellation Virgo. Okay, we know a lot of people do astrology and they talk about Virgo or Cancer, Sagittarius, or Leo. I'm not really too familiar with any of that, but that's Virgo. Okay, and In Virgo's right hand, there are 5 branches. That's what you see in the red. But they're not 5 stars. It's a certain star that's there. And in Hebrew, they call it the Zamach. Okay. So in Hebrew, the word is Bethulah. That's what we call that constellation, Bethulah, but we know it as Virgo. They both mean the virgin. All right. Everywhere you go on the earth, no matter what language they're speaking, they reference this constellation as the virgin. So that lets you know that this is even before the Tower of Babel fell and all that stuff. People had one language. They just took the ideas wherever they went on the earth and they distorted the true um reason why Yahuwah put the constellations and the stars. I'm gonna do a video on that one day about how the 12 constellations actually show the story of Yahusha from Genesis to Revelation. All right. So let's keep going. So that star is called Zamach, the branch, and is represented to have 5 branches. All right. So let's look at this. Isaiah 11, 1 through 2 says, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of the knowledge and the fear of Yahuwah." All right. So these 5 branches represent Yahusha. All right. So the branch is represented as in Isaiah, and Isaiah, this is what Isaiah says. It says, Isaiah added astonishing details to the picture of Yahusha as the Zamach. He prophesied that the Zamach would be very particular type of branch. It would be a netzer, okay? The science of horticulture distinguishes many types of branches or offshoots from a tree, which are designated by various Latin and English terms. The same is true in Hebrew and in the Hebrew language. So this is a particular type of branch that represents and is characterized by Isaiah concerning Yahusha. And we're going to get into it. So the word netzer indicates a shoot from an olive tree that grows out of its original root system, but springs up at a later time and somewhat distant from the trunk. Okay, the tree may have already been cut down because of its inability to bear fruit. Okay, so the branch that shoots forth out of the root of the stump of the family tree of Jesse, which is King David's father, will spring forth as a netzer. All right, let me see if I have this. Let's see if I have this in. Okay, let's keep going. So the inhabitants. Let me read this. Let me see if I have it. Give me 1 second. No, I don't have it. I just want to read this. Give me 1 second. Let me just read this. It's Isaiah 11:11. We all know it. We all supposed to know it. Let's see. So this is what Isaiah was talking about in Isaiah 11:11. Did I read this already? Give me a second. Yeah, yeah, I done read this already. But let me read this to you. All right. Because if you look at Isaiah 10, it talks about how the tree was cut down. It says, "Behold, Yahuwah, Alu of hosts, shall lop the bow with terror, and the high ones of stature shall be hewn down, and the haughty shall be humbled. And he shall cut down the thickest of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall by a mighty one." Then it goes into the 11th chapter. But back in these days, they didn't have chapters and verses. So it's just a continuation. And then it says, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch," which represents Yahusha, "shall grow out of his roots, and the spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him." So that's what we're talking about. This is this branch here. So let's keep going. So let's look at what this branch, how did that happen in real life? All right. So the village of Nazareth, or Netzereth, that's how you say it in Hebrew, Netzereth, but we know it as Nazareth, in North Israel, known in English as Nazareth, takes its name from the root word netzer. Descendants of King Dawid originally established the village. Miriam, who was the daughter of Joseph ben Yaakov of the bloodline of King David through the son of Solomon. That if you don't understand that, you got to look at the previous video about the lineage in Matthew, which was really the lineage of Miriam's father, which also his name was Joseph. Okay. All right. So, and Miriam's husband, Joseph ben Eli of the bloodline of King David through another son, Nathan, both grew up in Nazareth among distant relatives and a few Levites. So Nazareth was full of Jews, which we know as Judah, the Judahs, the Yahudims, and a few Levites. All right. So the inhabitants of Nazareth most likely settled in the area during the Greek occupation of Israel when many Judeans fled into Galilee region to escape persecution during the cruel reign of Antiochus or Antiochus Epiphanes, detailed in Maccabees 1 and 2. The residents of Nazareth knew their family history, and named their village in recognition of the fact that they were a shoot out of the tree of Jesse, springing up at a distant place and at a later time. So they did this understanding who they were. So that's why they called that place Nazareth, because they knew they was distant from their original resting place, which is in Jerusalem, or centered around that place, which was given to Judah, and they was in the north. But they knew that they was from the lineage of Dawid, of a royal line. Okay, so let's keep going. So let's look at his star. All right, let's look at the star of Yahusha. Okay, so Matthew 2, 1 and 2. I hope y'all keeping up with me. Now, when Yahusha was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and have come to worship him. So now, what did these three wise men see? Well, they weren't three wise men. What did these wise men see? All right, because over here, every time we see this star, we, in growing up, we see this star just come out of nowhere, and it just showed up, and it's just wandering, and just these three wise men saw it, and it just came over the manger, rested over the manger, and then they came in and found Yahusha in a manger, and that's that Christmas Christian theology. But that's not what happened. All right, because if I'm outside and I see this big star, everybody's going to see it. All right. So that's not what was going on. I'm going to show us what was really going on, and what did the three wise. I'm sorry, I keep saying three wise men. What did the wise men see? Are the kings from the East see? What did they really see? All right. So let's keep going. So the wise men. All right. So these wise men were astronomers from Chaldea. Now, astronomers is different from astrology. Astronomy is the study of the heavens. Astrology is when you take those things and try to say, this is what my future holds, and this is what my life is, and you try to tell fortunes from the signs that you see in heaven, and you're trying to, it's pretty much divination, okay? So, so these wise men were astronomers from Chaldea, better known as the region of Babylon. Okay, many of the royal family of the kingdom of Yehuda were trained in Torah and Hebrew astrophysics. Daniel, because of his wisdom, was the overseer of all the astronomers in Babylon. Y'all remember Daniel? Okay, so he was there for more than 60 years. He was made an extremely wealthy man 3 different times under 3 different kings in Babylon. Daniel was also a eunuch and had no direct descendants to whom he passed on his wealth. So Daniel was given very specific divine revelations concerning the timing of the coming of the Messiah. All right, y'all have to excuse, I have some misspelling. Just excuse me. So some of these revelations he made public. That's what we get in the book of Daniel. While others he was instructed to hide. That's what the Malachim told him. Said, no, seal this up, close it up, seal it up for the time of the end. All right. So now, since we can look back and we have understanding and revelation by spirit, we can look back now and see what was hidden, because there's some things that's already been passed. Okay. So let's look. So some of the revelations he made public, while others he was instructed to hide, but that does not mean he did not act upon the hidden revelation he was given. All right. When the Yahudim in Babylon were allowed to return uh reveal in Jerusalem, I don't know what that's supposed to return to Jerusalem in 457 BCE, many Yehudim stayed behind. There is no doubt that many of the Hebrew astronomers secured their prestigious positions and continued to flourish in Babylon. Okay, if y'all remember the story, if you ever read the story about uh the southern kingdom that was in Babylon coming back, some of the Jews or some of the from the tribe of Yehuda, the southern kingdom, they stayed in Babylon. They said, we made a life here, we've been here 70 years, we raised our children, we got, so we're just gonna stay. So we have to understand that some of those astronomers and stuff that was on the courts, they probably stayed because they secured a prestigious position there. All right. So, and I'll say this: so those wise men that came from the east were actually Hebrews that lived in Chaldea or lived in Babylon, and they were coming back to see their king. All right. So those wise men weren't just foreigners, weren't just Gentiles, wasn't just regular people looking, saying magi, that we call them magi. They weren't just magicians and astronomers, astrologers. They were Hebrew astronomers. They was given specific information that was carried down from Daniel to look for certain aspects. And we're going to talk about what signs were they given by Daniel. Let's look. So what happened to Daniel's treasure? Who would know and follow the detailed instructions and secure the financial provisions for a future journey to Jerusalem? How did the astronomers know what signs to look for in the heavens that would announce the birth of Yahusha? It would be none other than the Yahudim astronomers who stayed in Babylon, received instructions from Daniel, and passed it down and carried them unto the time appointed. Hallelujah. So what was his star? Let's look at it. If you look in Revelation, it says, and there appeared a great wonder in heaven, and a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. All right. So that's what this picture represents. This picture represents Virgo. Okay. This also shows you around the month of when Yahusha was born, because we know that Virgo, or in Hebrew Betula, is known as the month of September, predominantly September. All right. And it says that she was uh the moon, she was clothed with the sun. See, that's the sun behind her. So she was clothed with the sun. The moon was under her feet, and there was 12 stars above her head. All right. Now, if you can look closely, these 12 stars represented the 12 tribes of Israel, but it also represents the constellation Leo. All right. Now, what has happened that there's a few people who, because of the NASA introduced a software around 2000 to where they can take all the constellation, all the stars, and because the stars they move in a what's how does the word say it? They move in a pattern. Okay, they're able to rewind time. And so what these people did, they was able to rewind time all the way to 2000 years ago, and they're able to pick up on these signs and these things, and they're able to get specific dates of when these things happen. Okay? So that's why I go with the first sliver of the new moon being the first moon. Because if you did this with the new moon, it wouldn't work. It would throw everything off. Now people can say, "Oh, you can't trust the white man. They got the technology. They probably lying or whatever." Okay, you got to pick and choose. You can't pick and choose when you want to trust the white man. Okay, you got to stay with them, or you just don't. Don't just pick stuff that goes with your theology to pick it up when you want to. But when we take DNA evidence to show that certain tribes are not, Mexicans are not Issachar, or what I'm saying, uh Jamaicans are not Levites, what I'm saying, you can't do that. You got to pick and choose. All right, let's keep going. Um, so let's look at this. This is a bigger picture. This is what we saw, or what the sign was in Revelation. And that sign was, we call it Leo, but in Hebrew, that's Ariel or Ariel. All right. So let's keep going. And what we saw is that Ariel, what happened at this time, that this star known as Hamelech was between the feet of Ariel. All right. That was one star. Then what happened was Jupiter, which in those times they didn't know that there was planets out there, so they knew that they called those planets wandering stars, because they didn't follow the natural patterns of the other stars. It was fixed. The other stars are fixed there. But then you had these others. They looked at, I think at that time they could only see five planets, and they would do certain things. So they was with the wandering stars. So this was Jupiter. And they know Jupiter, they call it Hasidic, which means the righteous. So what happened was, these two stars came together. And when these two stars came together, they shined so bright. They shine it like you see this brightness shining. So what happened was, they knew that these two stars, it announced that the righteous king was being born. Okay? The righteous king was being born. Do you see that? The righteous king being born between between the feet of Ariel, which represents the lion of the tribe of Judah, the 12 tribes of Israel, things of that nature. Okay? So let's look at this. We can find this in Genesis 49:9. And it says, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. And he stooped down, he couched as a lion. Ain't that what this is? Him couching down, him crouching down. All right. And as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? And it says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. That's where that sign was, between his feet. All right. Until Shiloh comes, which Shiloh represents peace, or shalom, which is Yahusha. And unto him shall all the gathering of the people be. So that's what Yahusha was sent here to do. That's what he was for, uh, to die for our sins, to bring us back into right relationship through him to Yahuwah. And so this is what was going on. So let me read this. It says, just after sunset, like I said, they rewinded all the way back. September 12, 3 BCE, while the skies were clothed with the last rays of the setting sun, the first sliver of the new moon appeared beneath the feet of the constellation of the woman Petula, which means virgin or Virgo, at that moment. In the constellation of Ariah, the lion above her head. The planet Zadik, the righteous, came into conjunction with the star Melech, which means the king, that is astronomically positioned between the front feet of the lion. This sighting of the new moon that evening announced the day of trumpets, and the astronomic display in the constellation above the head of the woman heralded the upcoming birth of the righteous king. All right. The lion of the tribe of Yehuda, the great sign in the heavens, occurred as Miriam herself was about to give birth. Just 15 days later, at the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles, she brought forth the man child who was to rule all nations. On the first day, the high Shabbat of the Feast of Tabernacles, the Word was made flesh and tabernacle, or dwelt among us. St. John 1 and 14. Okay, so this happened because we know that um the wise men were in the east, and it took them months just to get Jerusalem. So this occurrence, this astronomical occurrence, happened 7 different times. This occurrence with the stars coming together. This occurrence with these two stars coming together. So it happened in 7 different time spans. So when they saw the first time, they said, "Okay, it's time to go." So they went packing up, and it took them, I believe they say, 5 months. That's just what comes to my head for them to get to Jerusalem. And then after that, it took them up to 2 years to find Yahusha. Okay. And when they found Yahusha, that's when they gave the presents and all these different things. So that's why Herod says, "I'm going to kill all firstborns children 2 years and under," because he knew about the time when the wise men came to him and told him about the star and what they were coming to do, and how long that he haven't seen them. So he says the child has to be at least 2 years and under. Okay, so that's why he put out that decree. It said, "I'm going to kill all firstborns 2 years and under." So that's why this is what made me fall in love, because it made this word more than just a fairy tale, a fable, a myth. These were practical things that you can pinpoint naturally in the heavens, in the earth, and it shows how accurate and how mindful Yahuwah was of every minute detail. That he started this thousands of years ago, this time clock, and coincide everything to happen at a specific time. You can't tell me that he's not real. And you can't tell me that we not his people. All right. So that's what I have today. Let's see if I have anything else. Uh, I think that's it. So, like I said, this conjunction happened 7 different times. All right. So I'll read this. So it says the statement summarized that the events surrounding Yahusha's birth, after all the requirements of the Torah was fulfilled, they eventually returned to Nazareth, but not before their escape into Egypt, which occurs over a year later. Matthew documents the visits of the Chaldean astronomers, which was prompted by the astronomical signs in the heavens that announced the birth of the king of Yehuda, of the king of the Yehudim. Upon their return from Egypt, they planned to return to Bethlehem, which is Bethlehem, but were diverted into the Galilee because of the trouble with Herod's son Archelaus. They returned to their hometown in the Galilee, where Yahusha grew to manhood. So, like I said, I have a book that I'm not going to share. It has a bunch of historical events concerning that time, and it puts in historical events, and it just plugs in certain things that's been documented concerning Roman history, concerning first century history, concerning what we went through in the times of the first century, and a lot of the political things that was going on, the religious things that were going on, uh, just a bunch of just beautiful stuff. Um, so yeah, so that's what was going on. So I pray that this was a blessing. I pray that y'all were able to hear everything that I said, and hallelujah. So this is like I said, this is just I'm going over just a few little bit of the introductory things concerning the life and the ministry of Yahusha. Later on we're going to get into, I forgot what the next one's about. I think I'm going to go deeper into the birth of Yakanan and the birth of Yahusha, and how Yakanan was the one that was sent to prepare the way, things of that nature. It's just beautiful. And again, these are things that help bring Yahuwah's word to life to me, and to see it just made me fall in love with Yahusha and with Yahuwah. So this is what I feel that's important, so that we may fall in love, so that the true love of Yahuwah can be in us, and that we don't be walking in pride because of identity. Because we have to understand that we all have to be adopted to be born again by the Spirit. Jacob, if he didn't do what he was supposed to do, there would be no Israel. But he went through the sufferings through the Spirit. He was led by the Ruach to go through those sufferings that he may possess the character of Yahuwah. So then he was given the name Israel. All right. So being Israel is not of the flesh. Because all that's why Shaul said all of Israel is not Israel. All that say the Israelite have not taken on the mantle and the character of what Israel means to prevail, to suffer with Yahuwah and to prevail through the test and to be conformed into the image of his dear son. Hallelujah. I'm going to stop right there. So I thank you for those that have been encouraging me. Many been sending comments. It's very encouraging, saying how you've been inspired, how you've been encouraged by the messages and how they've impacted your life. I greatly appreciate everyone who comments, who shares, and who gives donations, things of that nature. You're much appreciated. So until next time, this is Eliyahu Malak, and shalom. Be blessed. Hallelujah.